Welcome to another episode of Design on Purpose, the podcast where we talk about planet Earth as a garden and work of art for all life. And today on the show, I've got a very special guest, Nic Gibson. Welcome, Nic.
Thanks, Rex.
Yeah, and just before we get into your intro, I'll just a couple of formalities. If you don't already, like and subscribe. You know where to find us: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I'm TikToking as well. And
you'll find the bathrooms to the left and the right.
Yeah, there's no bathrooms in here, so you're locked in. And just recently as well, I just opened up a Buy Me a Coffee link, which I've got in the bio there. And I just want to say a very big thank you to some people that have contributed to that. So old Jennifer and at Tambourine Mountain Edible Garden Trail and the Stevie Experiment. Thank you very much. And welcome, Nic Gibson.
Thank you.
In Bali. I would never have thought that this would be the occasion that we'd catch up for a podcast.
The place. It's a good destination. It's a good destination for a pod.
Yeah. Nic, do you want to give us a little intro? I mean, you've probably got a very broad range of things that you could introduce yourself as, but how do you describe? How do you introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, depends on the context. At the moment, I'm working on a startup called inTruth Tech, measures emotional state in real time. My background's always been as an entrepreneur in different spaces and fields, specifically health. That's kind of in the through line. Mental health, integrated health. Over the years, served as a commissioner for 3 terms in Australia to the federal government, and really have just been like a crazy free agent with a thirst for freedom and a desire to change the world. I think would summarize that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. We need more of those, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got a little bit of a connection there. Like I kind of talked about this in a podcast that I haven't released yet, but I did like a solo pod where I was at the place where I had this kind of like insight to connect with you. And there's a funny story about that. So I don't know if I told you this whole story.
Please do.
Yeah. So obviously I was going through the ringer.
Dark night of the soul.
Yeah. And basically, when I was in Thailand, I was asked to do a water safety at this Ironman swim. And it was a bit random, but I met some guy called Jürgen. He's an Ironman, German Ironman coach, and he's like, "Oh, Rix, come and do some water safety for me." So I'm like, okay. So I got out in this kayak, and I was like kayaking on the water safety, and Jürgen's like, just follow the back of the pack of this Ironman swim, and it was an 8-kilometer swim that guys were going like out to Surin Beach and then back from Bang Tao. And so I ended up in this kayak, and I was like cruising along, and then I ended up at the back with this one swimmer who was like completely lost, he wasn't even a swimmer. Actually, I found out later he was a cyclist, and he didn't really know how to swim. But I was back there, and the guy was kind of like zigzagging around, and like he was really anxious about where he was. He was like, "Oh shit, like, Huck, are you there? Like, can you help me?" Like he was like this going like this, right? And I was like, wow, like this is so interesting. Like I'm doing that right now with my business because, I'm doing that. I'm like, I'm this guy. And then here comes Jürgen, sexy Jürgen, like the Marlboro man on his jet ski, and he's got like smoke like billowing out with his cigarette down thing. And he's like, you just stay with him. I'm like, okay, I've got him. So I was with this guy for ages. The packet completely gone. I was with this guy. And I'm like, wow, I'm an energetic match for this guy. But in that moment, I took a photo. I took a photo of myself in this kayak, and then when I got to the beach, and I thought of you out there actually because I was thinking about this emotional intelligence stuff, and I'm like, wow, like this is so weird. And then I seen that you had posted exactly the same photo. I would love to get these photos actually because it was exactly the same. It was like the same kayak, same paddle, hat backwards in the kayak, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to contact this chick.
Why don't you bring me into that moment?
No, because I was thinking about the fact that I was aware that this guy was like,
I understand.
Like it was so safe. He could have just swam there, but it was in his head, and what he was experiencing that was like causing
totally.
this.
That was over New Year's, right? I was actually on the Gillies. Yeah.
Isn't this weird?
And here we are in Bali. What a full circle moment. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I reached out to you, and you're very very good with making some time and space for me, and it really 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 helped me, because like, I mean, this stuff, like I've gone through learning this stuff, but it's kind of like sometimes you kind of get stuck in the pit, and you just need somebody to just lift you out.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that was easy, mate. You're already halfway there, but yeah,
I don't think so.
You were in the liminal space for sure, for sure. But it's interesting, right? Like when we're going through a transformational process and we're in what I would call the liminal space, where you're not who you were anymore, but you have no idea who you're becoming. Just how challenging so many of us find that in between space.
Yeah,
but how important it is, actually. We need those moments for sure.
Well, yeah, I say it's like, when one door closes, one door opens, but it's hell in the hallway. Mm-hmm. They don't tell you about the hallway.
Yeah.
Just leaving that out, just that bit, it's awful. But, and I'm still kind of like, I feel like I'm coming out the other side of it, but definitely, I think what I noticed in that is that there's a real, like, especially as someone, like, I'm very Virgo and I love doing stuff. I like to, take action. And I found like it was really, the biggest challenge for me was to not make a decision from a place of, needing to do something to try and fix something. And so like to stay in that abyss, when you leap in the abyss, to kind of stay in that negative space for a bit longer. So you kind of got some time for that chrysalis to really form,
Totally.
Yeah. And like, is that a lot of the work that you do with people, or are you more focused on the tech side of things now?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because the tech was a solution, a more advanced solution to this core problem I've always found myself drawn to solving, which is, someone's or a community or even a world's emotional imbalance and what that creates in someone's life. So not having a state of coherence. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because of course those moments are most triggered during a period of change and transition, right? And I kind of look back at my life, and I went through so much change at such a young age that I had kind of an innate ability, like what I would call like a change resilience, to understand that change is inevitable, how you navigate that change, we can gain levels of control over. And that's where I think we find, true empowerment, that identity is something that's always going to change and should change. And if it doesn't change, I think life's going to force you, into a situation where you need to transform and change, because it's a natural cycle that we're meant to go through. Yeah. But our culture in particular is the most disconnected from that than any culture, I think, before us, because we have an obsession with youth. We have an individualistic culture which says your identity is everything, and people kind of invest so deeply in identity and reputation, and then they want to preserve that rather than kind of allowing the cycles of life to move and shift and flow and change, which I think is where we find the most freedom. So a very long way of saying, that's in one way or another the problem I think I've always been solving, and maybe when people feel the most drawn to me.
What's that, when they're going through some big change?
Transformational time in their life. Yeah.
I mean, transformation is tricky one. Like I've done a lot of work in transformation, right? But in organizational transformation, and it's more like a scale. And we have this model which is like political, rational, emotional. Mm-hmm. And it's like a lot of the time the change, the reason why it's difficult for the change to happen, people think it's because of some rational problem, like, this system or that process or whatever it is, but it's usually the emotional and the political stuff that gets in a way. And that's like a system, of many people. But I imagine that there's fears within a person going through some change that's probably quite similar because everything's really fractal, right?
Of course, yeah. And, emotion is 80% of our decision making.
Yeah.
And so I kind of used first principles thinking to end up building the product that I'm currently building, because until we resolve the degree of emotional intelligence that we're currently seeing in individuals around the world, I don't think we're well equipped to handle some of these bigger challenges, because it's like insecurity and instability, even when, integrated into a really sophisticated solution or system, is going to create more insecurity and more instability. So we've got to resolve that. And I remember actually that was my, kind of advice to you during that time. Like, you've got to take the time out and you've got to figure out how to actually be with this process first and allow the next stage to emerge from there.
That's right. That's what you said to me. You said, because I was trying to get help with the business, and you're like, yeah, like, just put that over there. We'll look at that later. Now focus on your nervous system. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I get it. But yeah, no, I've actually, I took that on. Like, I've really, like, because you can feel it creeping in again, like the fear or like the uncertainty. And then you're like, no, just go to the sauna, go and swing some kettlebells, like, just shift the energy. So that's what I've been really focusing on. And it actually works.
Wow, go figure. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. You're onto something.
Thank you. Yeah, because the way I see it is, like, if you don't learn that core lesson, whatever the next pursuit is, you're just going to end up kind of in an energetic pattern that's the same. Like, it's like the same thing in different wrapping paper. The details are kind of different, but the core issues and instabilities are the same. And that's in all areas of life, right? Like, someone might say, when they meet someone, he feels so familiar, or she feels so familiar, and it's like, well, yeah, like,
same pattern.
She is every ex you've had.
Yeah,
like, that's the same frequency, the same pattern replicating itself over and over again.
Yeah, that's right. So it's like, until you design the new system, you're going to be creating the same thing in your environment, right? So it's like, we're going back to Bucky Fuller here. We're going,
but Wisto was the OG.
Yeah,
shit.
That's right. He was very close with my teachers, Matt and Gail Taylor, who taught me this methodology.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's
I mean, he really lived it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know, that Bucky is very famous for saying that you can't change the system. You have to design the new one and make the old one obsolete.
Yeah, don't rearrange deck chairs on the Titanic.
That's right. Yeah. And then, there's that space in between. That's the abyss, space. Right? So it's like, but if you don't wait for the new thing, if you don't allow the new thing to emerge and you keep implementing parts of this old thing, then you're just going to end up, you might change, okay, this tower falls, and then you start building another one, and then you're building the same tower.
That's it. Yeah, and you're also, it's an inevitability that will also fall. And it's really looking at life through the perspective of vibration and frequency, rather than, I think most people are kind of looking out at life, right, and their point of view is that we exist on this kind of horizontal plane. But when you start to understand vibration, you understand that life is more like kind of a dimensional reality, which is vibrational. That imagine that this is life. You could be this could be a vantage point, and then that becomes the horizontal plane based on your vibration. Maybe that's fear, anxiety, insecurity. Or if you actually elevate your consciousness and come to a place where you're calm and stable, or whatever, expansive, then your vantage point of life completely changes. And a lot of people don't, they never learn that. So they end up kind of being in a real frustration with life, not knowing how to create change, but their core patterns haven't changed.
And they're getting the same results.
Yeah.
And like, my teacher Matt says, is every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it's producing.
Yeah, I love that quote.
So it's like,
the system isn't broken, mate.
No,
the system is designed to do what it's doing. Yeah.
Well, even like with yourself, like, you have systems based on your habits, based on your thoughts, based on your programs. But those are perfectly designed to get the results that are going on outside in your external life. Yeah. It's like,
the difficulty is getting objectivity on that. What are the systems we have in place, and how can we actually analyze them objectively?
You mean like within a person?
Within a person, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you're working on?
Well,
Is that the technology?
This will allow you to actually be able to see that objectively. So it's not, I think, well, it's what I think. Yes, you can get there through kind of a very intentional meditation practice and discipline, because basically that practice is going to show you how to disconnect, help you realize that you're not your thoughts, help you realize that, you're not the things you're experiencing. There's an observer that sits behind all of that, that's ever present. That the degree of mastery that takes, how few people are going to actually commit to that. My belief and my passion, is that a solution like inTruth is needed to be able to reach kind of the masses, to help them externalize the things that are ultimately governing their behavior, and kind of, creating the quality of the life that they're experiencing. Yeah.
Do you think that's what's required to become a more evolved civilization?
I don't want to say like inTruth, like, it's got to be my product in my
no, but I mean that level intelligence.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, right? Because it's we're dealing with massive, existential problems right now, whether that's
huge,
AI or climate or ETs or, you name whatever. I actually think the inability to have robust conversations and debate is also an existential issue. People have become so emotionally fragile that they can't sit across the table from someone that believes different things to them without having a fucking meltdown, so that's also an issue in its own way. And actually, interestingly, like that was listed recently by which agency, it'll come to me, I can't remember, as like the third greatest risk to society and humanity.
What's that?
The
temper tantrums.
Basically, the polarization of humanity, the inability to actually, conversate.
Yeah, well, everything's just become so weaponized.
Yeah,
everything.
But it comes down to fragile egos. We're not developing a society where people feel self-assured and love themselves enough to be able to realize that if you don't agree with me, it doesn't make me less of a person. So, people's identity and belief system is like this right now.
Yeah.
But we've got to get to a place where we realize that we're not actually our belief systems. There's something much deeper that connects you and me, and we can believe different things, but our shared humanity runs a lot deeper than what we believe.
Yeah, that's right. And like, do you think that, in terms of leadership and politics, and like, do you see that there's a place for the tech? Like, could you see this technology being used in those spaces, or do you think it's too telling?
Yeah, well, I think
I'd love to see the data on those in a right. political debate.
Me too. I mean, of course, like as the visionary of this, I would love to see inTruth almost as a layer over content where you can actually see.
Yeah, imagine that.
But I think in absence of political leaders being willing to be that vulnerable, what I find interesting is the possibility that the consumer of those messages is for the first time going to be able to see the impact that certain, communication styles within leadership or political decisions, how that's actually affecting their nervous system, and then be able to see that through a population. So imagine we had, a large enough data set across the United States, and we could actually see, okay, whoever is going to be the next elected president, how that decision then affects different demographics within the United States. I think that would be really interesting. So it kind of puts power back in the hands of people in some ways, because at the moment, as mainstream media is kind of controlling the way that is translated. Like, they will speak on behalf of an entire country, but of course that's not true, So
there's probably a lot of things that aren't true.
Around. And the data can kind of bring visibility to that.
Whoa.
The crown fell off. All right. Some kind of sign.
Interesting. So I don't know, they were kind of distracted by that, but what stage are you at with inTruth? Have you released the
we're in beta, so I could actually, let's show you, and then you can check it out.
Cool.
So tracking.
Is that you right now?
It hasn't loaded to the most updated.
Okay, so you're not like, what's that? Your baseline,
like
low
calm,
energy,
calm,
pleasant. Oh,
calm,
that's nice.
calm and happy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. Is that the general? Do you find this helps you keep it more in that by?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yesterday.
That's cool.
So it'll aggregate the data, by day, so you can see. Like, for example, I don't know how good yesterday I had 50% of my day in my baseline.
Oh, cool.
So
even tempered, composed, neutral, content even. Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Yeah.
You're a content creator.
That's it. Yeah.
Cool.
Free agent.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Helps the nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely I use inTruth a lot, but you would hope so. I think if we're not creating a product that we would use, then why create it? But I definitely think, with busyness, travel, a lot of things, it can be hard to know exactly where you're at. Especially I have quite a strong mind. And it was interesting because we ran a retreat recently and we had the participants use the tech. And I really related to what one of the participants, who was the CEO of a company, shared. He said, I have a very strong mind. So sometimes when I'm not in the best place, I refuse to acknowledge the fact that I'm not in a good place, because mentally I tell myself that I can, persevere and get through it. And being able to see that reflected objectively in the app is helping me close the gap between kind of my mind and what my mind's forcing me to be okay with and what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And I relate to that. I think mentally things have to get very, very, very stressful before I'm like, oh, wow, I'm really stressed. And then I'm really stressed.
Yeah, you see a lot of this too. Hey, like, I mean, I've been working with some, executives and leadership teams, and you see the toll that this kind of life takes on your body and your mind, and then it becomes like the new normal. Yeah. Like, it's just kind of like, it's just considered to be the standard. So
what's crazy is people earn all this money just to then lose their health and have to spend huge amounts of money fixing their health, which is why I'm so obsessed with high performance. It's like you've got to integrate that into the journey in order to actually be able to enjoy the fruits of your success.
That's it. I love Paul Chek talks about this, and he said sooner or later your health will be your number one concern.
100%. Like, I can't echo that.
And I've got friends that have taken a very different lifestyle. I've never really been like a full-time 9-to-5 employee kind of person. I mean, maybe that would be quite nice at some point, but I've got my friends, like, I've got people contacting me since I've been traveling around and stuff, and they're like, oh my God, Mix, like, this looks so cool, you're having so much fun. And I'm like, yeah, let's catch up. And I chat to them and they're like, yeah, I'm like, don't really love my job. I'm like, I got to work tomorrow. Not really feeling great, not healthy. Like, and I'm like, why don't you just quit? And they're like, no, because I have a mortgage, or no, because I can't, because I need retirement. I need like my superannuation and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but you're living like this now.
You're being bored.
You're living like this now for some future life that doesn't even exist yet. And it's like, why? Why are you doing that? Let's jump on a call tomorrow. We need to talk about this. Like, it's not good. Yeah. Now I've got friends looking at, potentially working remote and coming and spending some time with me. But I think there's a real need.
Viva a la Rix.
Rancho relaxo. No, it's not. I work really hard, actually, by the way. I just do it by the pool. But I think there is a real need to shift that culture. It's like we've built these organizations.
It is shifting as well.
Yeah. It definitely, I think there definitely is more awareness around it. And I think the remote working thing is probably shifted there. But I think there's a real need for those places for, people that are, to recover from those experiences. Like, I've even been
recover from the system,
from the hamster wheel. Yeah, it's rough. Like, I've also been meeting a lot of people in when I was in Thailand that are, you know, come from the corporate world and have just been completely burnt out.
Yeah.
You know, I was one of them. I didn't come from like corporate, but like when your body's full of cortisol and you're just, you know.
Don't get me started on cortisol.
Oh, really?
Fuck cortisol.
Oh, it's rough.
But I think, you know, even living in a city, it is so hard to have regulated hormones. Honestly,
yeah, I
there's
mean,
just so much stress everywhere all the time. Even if you don't have work stress, it's just environmental stress, environmental, like xenoestrogen, like, you know, we could do a whole podcast just on that, but
on xenoestrogen.
well, on hormones.
On hormones, yeah,
hormones,
it's big.
And like how dysregulated people's system is, and how hard it is actually once your body's that out of whack, how to fully bring it back into balance. Like I always laugh when a question I get asked a lot is, well, how do I live a life that's really in alignment with myself? And, you know, there's a physical way of being aligned, right? Having balanced hormones, having an aligned spine, you know, having the right kind of diet and nutrition for your body, these things will create internal alignment. And like you've got if you want emotional alignment or, you know, any kind of alignment beyond that, you've got to start with the body.
That's it. No, I 100% I'm with you on that. Like, I mean, I've just done it. Like, I was always really like physically fit when I was in high school, and like I used to row surf boats, and then, you know, one thing gets in the way, then you just kind of lose touch with that, and then like I've been really making an effort to get back to that, and I love it.
Yeah.
Like I feel so good when I was, you know, at the gym or swinging a kettlebell or at jiu-jitsu, and you know, it's just you realize how much it impacts your mental state.
Massive.
Yeah, so there's no going back for me now. That's like a priority. That's like a priority just for my general, like, you know, well, yeah, mental health. It's my mental health. My gym membership is like my mental health plan. Yeah, so yeah, and on that, or just on that topic of you know, changing that, you know, what's going on internally and hormonal and whatever. It's like, you know, you can't heal in the same environment that makes you sick, right? And that's the external environment, but there's also the internal environment that's going on inside. If you keep that the same, then you won't be able to heal. And like I always talk about parasites on this podcast for some reason, because it's like I just
take over your mind.
Sorry,
once
but
you realize
it's a massive, like, I just think that everything comes down to toxins and parasites. And really,
environmental toxins, parasites, hormone imbalance.
Yeah, well, but
gut microbiome.
But the toxins impact the hormones and the biome, right? Yeah. But it's like you can't, if you don't heal the internal environment, then you can't heal, because it's like if you have healthy soil, you don't get pests, you don't get all the, you know, the bad things coming and eating your veggies, because it's actually too nutrient dense. So it's probably the same thing inside your gut. You know, like once you get the environment right inside, then the parasites aren't really going to come around. Yeah. So it's like
they'll always be there, but an overgrowth.
Well, yeah, you gotta, you know.
You are a host to parasites. You just got to accept that.
That's true, but you know, we can do a little tidy up every now and again.
Totally necessary.
Yeah.
Recommended.
100%.
And heavy metals, actually. That's another big one.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize this, but I've been looking into this Hilda Clark lady.
Okay.
And I've been looking at a lot of her videos. She wrote a book like The Cure for All Diseases or something like that. And she's the one that says like all diseases are to do with parasites and toxins. And yeah, she's basically saying that the solvents, she can tell what type of parasites you have and where they're located by what kind of solvents she's finding in your system. So they're actually connected.
Yeah.
And they use the solvents to like make these like little shields and things. Yeah, and apparently like, and it makes so much sense. Like when you think about it, they create little, like when you're breathing in toxins or you've got things in the atmosphere, these little things, they make little holes in your tissues. So that's where the little
silverfish.
Yeah, they get in there like little fungal, microbial things.
We're going down a parasite rabbit hole.
We are, so I don't want to go too far, but it's just like, basically it's like there's so many factors that you don't, like we don't see.
That's right.
There's the metaphysical stuff, but there's also the stuff that's going on with your.
It's actually very linked, very, very linked.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah. Because if you are kind of conscious on a metaphysical level, then your sensitivity to what's going on, inside your body, I think increases. Yeah. So I think it's kind of inextricably linked. And I do believe that, when the body is, the body's pure, we have so many innate gifts and so much innate technology, but these kinds of imbalances in our body basically create, they're blocks. They're blocks to us being able to have, visionary ideas. And I really believe that when you're clear on a physical level, when you're, and you can see it even in someone's eyes, if they have a clear kind of environment inside their body, they're awake. You can see more.
Sparkly.
Yeah, sparkly humans. That's what we need. Yeah. So it is very linked, I think. Like, I always question if someone says they're really awake but they're not caring for their health. Like, to me, there's some gaps there. There's some blind spots.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely was there, like I'm aware of all this stuff. I have been for a very long time, but I hadn't really been fully focused on my health. I think just because I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I think I was bored, actually. I think I was really, really bored.
Disengaged in life. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so, now I feel really embodied, and that's different. I just feel like everything's just happening really quickly.
And you start to experience the synchronicities again. And this is what I mean. It's linked to the metaphysical world, right? Like, when you feel vital, that's literally, I mean, yogis would call it chi. Like, you're actually activating your chi. The energy flow, like, through your spine, through your body, that's going to connect you to magical moments, to synchronicities, to opportunities, to intuition.
Yeah, that's it. And so what do you think about, because I love talking about the future, I love talking about
the bright future,
the possible, the possibilities of future, and there's probably many futures we could go down.
Totally infinite.
And, just looking at where the world's at right now, because it's a very, it feels like a very heated global climate right now, right? And we're talking about emotional intelligence, and we're talking about all these leaders with, very dangerous toys.
Right.
And, what's the potential for that? But it's kind of like, where do you see things going? And, because there's a few ways we could go right
different
now.
Scenarios.
There's a few different scenarios. So, like, what scenario do you see playing out?
Well, I am completely committed and devoted to the scenario that I am committed and devoted to, which is a positive future.
Yes, me too. I'm with you.
I just want to caveat anything that we talk about but with that I'm not some kind of, defeatist or, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the brilliant, like the most brilliant minds in AI recently said the probability of AI wiping humanity out, in some predictions it changes depending on who you're sort of listening to, but some of them say 70%, So these are real existential threats. And a lot of the ways of thinking about that is not that they will turn against humanity necessarily, but, the intelligence will be so far beyond human intelligence that it's kind of like, they'll see us the way we see ants. We don't mean to hurt ants, but it's an inevitable part of, the difference in intelligence and size that ants are probably going to get hurt because of human existence.
Do you think we can influence
of course,
the way that the AI starts to evolve? Or do you think it's just, it's out of hand and we can't have any...
Well, no one's come out to say they've cracked artificial general intelligence. And I think when we have AGI, and there's different people that define AGI in a different way, Altman's definition,
Hang on a second. When you say AGI?
Artificial general intelligence.
Artificial general intelligence.
So
what's the difference between that and AI?
So AGI is basically... So Sam Altman's definition is it will match that of a mean human, so an average human, in the sense that...
Is an average human a mean human?
Yeah, he's using like statistical language. Okay. Yeah. But what he means by that is it becomes completely autonomous. So, you can tell a human, I want you to go out and, figure out how to make me a meal, and you could take the initiative to go and, go to chef school or whatever. You know, you could rationally and critically think your way into a solution. I have a sense that some of these companies have seen glimpses into AGI and they just haven't made that publicly known. But, you know, I don't know. That's pure speculation. That's pure opinion. But what we do know is that is inevitable. And at that time, we're going to see a massive acceleration curve of basically an intelligence explosion. And that's where people, you know, like Musk, his solution is, well, let's all kind of get a neural link and match. I
don't know about that thing.
Match AI. So just have it kind of be a part of our consciousness because it's the only way that we're going to remain relevant, you know. But I see it from a very different perspective. And I guess to kind of break that down, AI, kind of any artificial life force is going to depend on probability and predictability to make decisions. And AI can reach a level of intelligence where that ability to predict is at like 99.9%. Right? But there's always going to be that 0.1 or 0.01%, whatever it is, that is down to spontaneity, which I think is what, you know, being sovereign and having a soul and a spirit allows us to have access to. So part of my thinking around the risks that we're on the precipice of as humanity, coming back to why I believe in the power of emotional intelligence and like being awake metaphysically and spiritually, is that we have an unprecedented amount of power, which most spiritual scriptures have spoken to, right? Like in Christianity, they'll say, well, you know, Jesus said in the New Testament that you were made in the face and image of God, and that's been said in different ways, you know, through different scriptures. What I take from that is we have divine DNA that we can miraculously and spontaneously create something that does not depend on probability and data from the past.
That's right. And it's spontaneous. We can be spontaneous.
Yeah, which is organic.
That's right. And we can manifest. That's manifesting, right? It's
totally.
Like
that's the performing of a miracle, right? It's like the conviction that I think manifestation, when you become so masterful at manifestation, you've closed the gap of time. So the time between, you know, your intent and what you're willing and the actualization of that is at a 0 point. That's what I believe, you know, the performance of a miracle is. And I very much believe that that's within our ability, because we're demonstrating it all the time. Like everything here was a process of creation.
Yeah, it was this thought before it was up there floating in the bubble. Someone brought it down. We just,
you know, I think the conditioning and the layers of belief, and also I think I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think conditioning, layers of belief, and then also, you know, the way that we're being indoctrinated into the idea of time. These ideas that have become so foundational to the way that we perceive reality.
Yeah, that it's linear, like it's like this linear thing.
Yeah, that we've been limited in our capacity to really understand our power. And I believe that, you know, claiming that power, the word inspiration means within your spirit, you know, to become inspired, to become vital, which I think health is a big part of as well. That is going to allow us to always remain, you know, the dominant species. And, you know, that's what I think more of us need to be working on. We need to free ourselves of that conditioning.
Yeah. What do you think it's going to take, you know, to really do this together, this work together on a global scale?
We need an idea that is simple enough and contagious enough that an entire population, or at least a critical mass of people in the population, can rally around. And, you know, I was speaking about this at the event that I was just at here in Bali. Part of my talk was bringing to the forefront of people's understanding that we just journeyed as a world 4 years, right, where it was proven unequivocally that an entire global population can rally around a single idea. That is unprecedented. That's never happened, not even in world wars. That has never, ever happened. But what if that idea wasn't COVID-19, fear, whatever? What What if you
Just be careful.
What if sorry, don't want to get your pod cancelled.
No, it's all right. I think we're past it now. I think people worked out what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. You know, what if that idea was the awakening of humanity? What if that idea was a loving way of life?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Like, I think it's pretty profound, really. It's like you have more knowledge in your pocket, like as a everyday person, than a king would have had back in the Middle Ages. By far.
There's
It's
more
infinite.
technology in your phone than what built some of the first rockets that went to outer space.
So it's like, where does that leave us? It's like we've got so much access to information. I mean, there's definitely there's two sides to that.
Totally.
But it's pretty wild. Like that's
analysis paralysis.
What's that? Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and death by choice and variety. But that's
and dopamine overload,
addiction.
right?
Yeah, totally. That can be solved when someone actually like starts to learn themselves and they gain discernment and wisdom. Then you know what to do with information. But whilst you are asleep, and I think a part of that too is people's relationship, the general population's relationship with authority. And let's explore that, because this is an important part of, I think, this whole conversation.
Explore away.
Well, the government has become like a pseudo mummy and daddy, and that's like a place where once upon a time God was, and like the total disconnection, I think, of spiritual understanding and practice in the West has meant that the government can step in and kind of fill that God-shaped hole in people's lives. But the word itself literally means authority, the one that writes the rules.
And government means
mind control.
Mind control.
That's it. So, when you understand what authority actually is, the fact that we are born sovereign, it's truly, we are sovereign before we got, a birth certificate and became a commodity to the state.
Yeah, because the birth certificate is for a ship lost at sea. It's maritime law, right?
Yeah. Well,
it's like you're being birthed to a country.
You're a commodity. Yeah, and that's what allows you to hold the documents that you have, your driver's license, your passport.
In all capitals.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's the straw man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah.
And so people identify with that. And, on a subconscious level, for the most part, because not a lot of people are kind of awake to this, but on a subconscious level, they go through life being like, well, I'm a commodity, someone else can have authority over me. Someone else can tell me what to do, whether it's mum or dad, whether it's, I don't know, my boss, whether it's the government, whether it's the media, because I don't know how to be autonomous. I don't know how to write my own rules, which is actually the true expression of a human being.
That's it. It's like it's almost like people love it though, because they love it because they don't want to think about
like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, well, they don't know. Well, I guess when you go to it depends on how you were raised. I guess like your schooling and everything. But it's like people get so used to being told what to do. Yeah. That when they leave school,
they don't know how to have their own authority.
And it's just like you have all these children walking around as in adult, meat suits, making decisions, and some have very, like I said, very dangerous toys, and then what happens when someone gets angry and throws a temper tantrum? Yeah,
annihilates all of humanity because they got upset, a little bit too upset. Totally, but we all contribute to that power dynamic, and that to me is an important thing for general population to understand, because you don't get these levels of power imbalance, especially when the majority of the population is the majority of the population and the elite are few, right? So there's power in solidarity. There's way more power in solidarity than there is in, a
so
few.
Much.
However, it's the layers of mind control. And I've gone so deep into this. I think the matrix even exists, inside our own body through some of these things that we've been talking about, like artificial processed foods.
Absolutely.
Energetic imprints, belief systems, emotions, all of that is within the body. So even if you can wake your mind up to some of these ideas, until you actually understand how to purify and liberate your entire being, I think you can have a realization. And I'm sure many people experience this. They have an epiphany, they have a realization, but when it comes to actually living it, integrating it, making the consistently difficult choices, to free themselves of that system, there's something that holds them. It remains that vibrational match to the system.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So, like, what do you think, like, if someone's out there and they're listening to you and they're like, that sounds like me. Like, I know this stuff, but I'm not really
Apologies, my friend.
No, it's not like we've been there. I mean, I'll show you guys go to my TikTok. But
slave to the system.
No, well, I mean, I've always, I've been awake for a while, but it's just about that. Because sometimes when you do wake up and you see what the hell's going on, especially through COVID and everything, you're like, oh, like, I medicate, somebody get me a beer. I need
anything.
That. I want that. No, I'm joking. No, yeah, anything, but not anything. But it can really, and you do see a lot of people in that spiritual trap, where people kind of like really go into rejection and like upward or downward, like projecting, and then you're kind of like buying into it because you're actually matching it with the equal energy of like resistance, right?
Polarity.
That's right. So it is a bit of a trap as well.
Yeah.
So it's like if someone's out there and they want to like, get healthier and what do you think's the best way to start?
Whew, big question. Look, I mean, start with if you're really at the beginning of your journey, start with the basics. Like, what's the quality of your water?
Yeah, that's huge.
First question.
People don't think about the water stuff.
You are 70 to 80% water. So, that's literally your cells. Water also, the famous work of Dr. Emoto, like he's proven that water holds a frequency and a memory. Change the quality of the water you're drinking. That's like just that.
Get a water filter. Get a good filter.
Yeah. Whatever you need to do to not drink all of the shit that's in tap water.
Yeah.
It's a really good starting point. Second, I would say sleep. And I would actually say that these things are more important on an initial level, if you really just want to take it in baby steps, than even exercise, because it's so foundational to your overall ability to detox actually and repair. So water and then sleep.
Sleep's a big one.
8
hours, guys. Get your sleep.
8 hours, and track your heart rate. Where's your heart rate at when you're sleeping? I notice when I'm in an environment like Bali, like when I was on the Gillies over New Year's, my resting heart rate dropped down to 42 beats, overnight, and it's just like the rest you can get when your heart rate drops.
There's like no technology on that place, right? Either.
No. Well, there was like some solar, and I think maybe some generators, but no phone reception, Wi-Fi in like one little area, but it was amazing. There's no interference, there's no frequencies, and the environment's so nourishing. And I would say kind of in Australia, it was sitting 48, 49. In San Francisco, it goes up to 53.
Yeah.
So it's at rest. So that's like a difference of 11 beats a minute, right? So that's
incredible.
Huge in terms of like your body's ability to actually restore itself. And I used to be like very like, I was a power lifter, right? So I was like training, diet, but actually like yes, those two things are very, very, very important and they need to be prioritized. But I actually look at it through a bit of a different lens now, which is what is the stress load on my body? Do I have the right foundation to handle stress? Like if I'm going to put my body under stress, extreme stress with training or whatever, I want to make sure that I have the right foundation to be able to be resilient in that stress and not just, basically elevate my cortisol levels consistently.
Well, that's it. Like I seen that in Thailand too. Like people come there to get fit, but then they've gone from like living like sloths basically, and then they come to the gym to like get fit. But then like they end up getting quite sick because they go from like
0 to
nothing to like training like 3 or 4 hours a day, and like your immune system goes down. So that I mean, I'm a really big fan of walking. I think walking's a really good thing to do, like is a start, just get out and walk, go and walk on the grass, at the beach, get some
direct sunlight.
Yeah, morning sun.
So that's the thing as well with, and I'm not saying anything new here. You go to, Shiberman's podcast and he'll do a way better job of explaining all of this, but you know, these are really the basics. If you want to fix your sleep, then you got to fix your melatonin and also your cortisol. So making sure that you're seeing daylight when you first wake up.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you think about us, you know, in a natural environment, we wouldn't be sitting inside in artificial lights when we first wake up in the morning.
No way.
Another really great way to do it is to make sure that you're watching either sunrise or sunset, because the gradient of the sky, to actually watch that gradient go down, you know, basically corrects the melatonin.
Yeah, so the circadian rhythm, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's some practical, tactical things to
Fix that
do.
first.
Yeah, just start simple. It makes a huge difference though. Like I'm really committed to getting in the sun 20 minutes every morning, midday, before midday.
Yeah.
You know, I'm living the life here, so I can do that. But yeah, that's good. And what about? I want to talk a little bit more about the global stuff, like because I know we have a very similar vision in a way, like from what I you know, from our interactions back and forth. Yeah. And world peace. No.
Unity consciousness for all.
No, but no, seriously though, like, because my teacher Matt, my teachers Matt and Gail, you know, that was this vision that I mentioned at the beginning, Planet Earth, or it was actually a planet as a garden and a work of art for all life, is Matt and Gail's vision, right? And Matt and Gail, for those listening, that they started this co-design methodology called MG Taylor, which I use for complex systems change, right? It's basically for designing the future. And I got them to change it to, well, I said, oh, Gail, it actually should be planet Earth, not just a planet, because what if they go to Mars and they make it a garden, and what about Earth, you know? And she's like, yeah, definitely, it should be planet Earth. But they had this vision of you know, Matt had built this thing called, or had designed this thing called Xanadu. And it's like this, basically these nodes, there were 12 of them on every continent. And there were like these co-design centers where humanity could come and actually make decisions together and design solutions together, you know, like kind of like a forum, but a real consensus-based forum where we scan and we share solutions, and then we actually work on things. And it's complete, you know, where it's decentralized and there's no government or like one, you know, like it's kind of like a decentralized way of decision making. And then when you read a book like Sand Talk, you know, and you're looking at how First Nations people used to, you know, how their governance models worked in Australia, and it was all decentralized. You know, they had a law, LORE, on the overarching. And but they, you know, they maintained their connections and their, you know, they had a very complex system of you know, kinship groups and things like that, family groups, and like I really see that is the way to go. Like that's the vision that I have, and I think that, you know, what I see in the world with all this centralization, it's kind of, you know, it's
got some design flaws for sure.
Oh, I mean, definitely for us it does. Maybe not for the people at the top of the pointy end. Yeah, let's not do that. If people start.
Yeah. So I think, you know, first things first, I'm really big on thinking about how we bring power closest to the people power effects. And, you know, you want to talk about systems and systems being perfectly designed to create the outcomes they create. Well, at the moment, the system is perfectly designed to keep the power in hands of few, and actually as far away as possible from the people that power is affecting. So I think part of the promise of decentralized technologies, democratizing ideas and companies, which you're seeing more and more of a movement towards, I think that definitely needs to grow. I don't know if, you know, DAOs and blockchain is going to be kind of where it ends up, but I think it definitely could be a bridge.
Yeah, like collaborative decision making. Because do you know that the Ukraine is like, I saw quite a few people on LinkedIn that were working like to make the Ukraine the first digital government, first AI or like digital government in the world. Like, what about when AIs become? Yeah, it is very interesting, isn't it? Very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I hear, right, when I think about people that kind of see AI as potentially becoming like a governance system is like, why have we lost so much faith in ourselves that we would get to a point where we're like, yeah, that's a better idea than leaving humans in, you know. However, I think AI has the potential and will very powerfully automate a lot of the kind of functional work that needs to be done in our world. And I think that that's very powerful, and I think it should be used to kind of solve problems that we don't have the brain power or the intelligence to solve. You know, look at all of the data that can come together and be aggregated to make more kind of conscious decision making.
Yeah.
But
it's like you use it to aggregate, right? To get inputs.
The concern for me is we're basically saying that the conscience, you know, and the spirit and our sense of morality, which is innate and is what is uniquely human compared to any other species that we know of. I don't know, maybe dolphins and whales, I'm not sure. But as far as we know, we have this innate conscience that I believe is really where, you know, once you connect to that, you find a sense of true liberation. Like the masters, the gurus on the planet are living in alignment to that, you know, inner voice.
Yeah.
To me, we should have so much reverence to that. Like the kingdom of heaven is within us. That's where our wisdom is. That's where timelessness is. So to hand, you know, the controls of a nation or a world or even an entire system over to an intelligence that does not have conscience.
Well, we've been doing that. Like anyway, like when you have a look at some of the, you know, I don't want to go too deep into the religious stuff, but it's like we do humanity. It's a rabbit hole, and you know, very polarizing probably too, which I'm not afraid of that. But you know, it's just like, you know, to be able to have an open conversation about it, it's like, you know, I just imagine like a world of Oliver Twists, you know, like, please, sir, can I have some more? Like we're kind of like giving away our
please, can I have the right to exist?
Yeah, it's kind of like,
please tell me I'm worthy of $50 an hour.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really, and that, you know, that just to bring it back, I mean, that was the first thing that you actually asked me. Actually, you said to me, just to bring it back to that, and that is a real program. Do you know what you asked me?
Can't remember.
Do you know what the question that you asked me about, like the first thing when we had our first conversation?
No, I don't remember.
Well, it was like, you said to me, why is Rix worthy of living a fulfilling life? That's what you asked me. And this comes back to that, because I think that is the real root of the problem, is that we have embedded in our psyche that we're not worthy of living fulfilling lives.
Totally.
And I went,
and yet we will, you know, not happily, but we will watch others that do, and not draw a link. You know, we'll see a celebrity or a government official that has, you know, unprecedented amounts of power and freedom, and just be like, oh, well, yeah, that's just how it is. You know?
It's an upward projection. Yeah. You know what? It's like I had some Indigenous elders tell me this, some aunties. And they're like, well, we don't worship nature. You know, we don't worship nature. Nature is autonomous. We respect nature.
Beautiful.
And we live amongst nature. We are with nature, but we don't worship nature. Yeah. Because nature is a being like us, you know, and we live like it's like this autonomy thing.
Sovereign.
Yeah, and so I think that we get in this trap of like looking for, it's like the Messiah complex, right? Totally. It's like, or like well, maybe that's not the right thing. I think maybe that's when you think that you are.
Well, yeah, but I think that the Messiah complex that, you know, exists in the hands of few, that then is maintained because a population of people won't recognize that they are actually sovereign of their own right.
Yeah, so it leads to all sorts of problems because we time and time again we keep giving away our power and decision-making capability to others when we're actually, like, you know, a lot of people in conflict, if you see people in conflict and you bring them into a room together, if you give them a problem to solve, generally people will put their differences aside and solve it. And I see that a lot of the time in co-design forums. You know, I've been in some very heated rooms with people of all different, you know, walks of life, and when you send them out to do an assignment, there they are in a breakout together, just getting to work.
I mean, I love the quote, most people's problems are their problems aren't big enough. You know, when you're working towards a big problem, I think it lends itself to needing to put the ego aside and become collaborative. But most people's biggest problem is like, why didn't he text me back, and what am I going to have for lunch, and why does my boss hate me? Like, they're not like, how can I change the world, and how can I be a part of creating a positive future?
Yeah.
How can I, you know, live a fulfilling life that the impact extends beyond me and my immediate circles? Like, to even just place your attention on that is going to create, you know, if you do it properly, a radical transformation in your perspective in life, because
you can zoom out, right?
You can zoom out, exactly. Like, most people's perspective is just so constrained. And, you know, I hate this idea that time is the only catalyst for perspective. Like, no, experience is the catalyst of perspective, like sensory input, experience. And that's something that we have to actively, you know, participate in. We can't be waiting around 10 years, living the same day every day for 10 years, expecting our perspective to change.
No, you cannot learn from experiences that you are not having. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, like, you can have an experience that completely radically changes your perspective forever, and that's integrated, and, you know, you're a different person before and after. Like, that's that level of transformation. It's not even that level of transformation is possible. That's actually how change works. Change happens in an instant. You know, you might take 10 years to prepare yourself for that change, but at some point, you know, you're putting a stake in the ground and saying, actually, I decide to be someone different. I decide to look at this a different way. I'm going to change my position on the things that I've, you know, believed. And that's an incredibly powerful thing. But I think, you know, even sometimes things like pride get in the way, or like the fear that, you know, when you take accountability and responsibility for your life like that, then there's no one to blame, you know?
That's very scary.
Yeah.
No, that is. No, I mean, you definitely, you know, I think that's the maturity. That's when you grow up, you know, when you realize that you are fully responsible for everything that's going on around you. You know, and I think that's, I mean, I think you experience that as well with parents, you know, you sometimes, you know, like,
people are still blaming mommy at 50 years old.
Yeah, like, you know, when you realize your parents are actually, they've got a different blueprint to you, and the sooner you can kind of accept the views, or like, you know, you can get to some peace.
Yeah,
you know?
and humanize them as well. You know, it's becoming your own, again, authority, your own parent. And really that should be happening during, you know, coming of age, which should be.
We don't have really though, do we?
We don't at all. You know, I'm very passionate about that. It's something I talk on a lot when I speak, is the importance of initiation and rites of passage, and how those early relationships would change, how they're formulated because of the way that we were initiated, which is usually in our culture peer-led and not led by some kind of proper initiation. That becomes the way someone deals with change for the rest of their life. And that's why you see, you know, that 13-year-old boy who was initiated into his manhood by his peers, drinking beers and watching pornography, and, you know, thinking that it was like his manhood to sleep with as many girls as possible or whatever. At a midlife crisis at 50 years old is behaving exactly the same way. It's this perpetuated relationship with change. We learn that that's the way to deal with change.
Yeah. That's a pattern.
Totally.
Yeah, it's all patterns.
But it's like that's what was communicated of, like, that's what it means to be an adult in the world, right? So to reflect on that, for me personally, my rite of passage really was an eating disorder, because I was looking to what was modeled to me as, you know, a healthy woman in the world, to be perfect, to have complete self-control, you know, to be that ideal in every way. And now I have to watch it when I'm going through a period of vulnerability or transition, to not, allow those same thought patterns to kind of control the way that I'm dealing with that change and that transition.
Yeah. Who taught you that?
I could definitely credit Dr. Anna Rubinstein, who is an incredible teacher of rites of passage. But honestly, like, I found him at 21 years old. But before that, when I first started my nonprofit, which was my first company, it was in mental health and community-based mental health. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was in learning more about the landscape of mental health in Australia, and really the statistics are very similar everywhere in the West. 80% of adult mental health challenges first manifested in adolescent years. So that to me was like, what the hell are we doing wrong? But the other statistic that really brought that home was, out of that 80%, 90% of those challenges that people are going through are triggered during periods of transition and change. So when I started to really unpack that, and I was very curious, and I was working with a lot of different communities, so I had a huge exposure to different people's stories, right? I started to see that working, because I did a lot of work in schools as well, working with a 10-year-old and having a conversation with them about, what their dreams were and who they wanted to be in the world. There was no apology in being able to say, this is who I want to be. Like, they were fighting each other to answer that question. You'd ask the same question to 13-year-olds and they'd literally be mortified at the idea of answering that question. Those experiences matched with understanding some of those statistics made me realize that intersection of transition into adulthood, we're really doing something wrong. And so that made me curious, like, has that always been the case? It doesn't seem to have always been the case. So then I studied, indigenous cultures, tribal cultures, ancient kind of civilizations, and recognized that actually every other culture has had a rite of passage, a coming of age, some kind of coming of age. And then looking at the landscape of the West, our coming of age is not facilitated by elders, it's facilitated by peers. So it's basically the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
And most of the time in our culture, it revolves around drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, as the four kind of key, ideas of like, hey, welcome.
Not healthy.
What does it mean to be an adult in the world? And then also recognizing that people are so change resistant, and no wonder, because most people's first experience of change was highly traumatic. Like, think about listeners, the first time, if you're a female, the first time you got your period. For men and women, what was it like to lose your virginity? For most people, they were pretty traumatic experiences. Not always, but I think for the majority of people, it was peer pressure, it was shame, it was humiliation. I think that's a very kind of common story. And it's like, hey, welcome to adulthood, like, this is what it is to be an adult in the world. And so the subconscious mind is then afraid of change. But back in the day, tribes, it was an empowering initiation process. And you were welcomed as an adult into the community after you had conducted some kind of, ceremony, whether it was the boy going and hunting the tiger and then being celebrated by the tribe when he got back, or a woman sitting under, a willow tree and being visited by the elders and having that be this really sacred kind of time when she first got her menstrual cycle, that allowed that transition to be one that was, of strength, and that helped that young adult realize, well, I'm capable of transforming throughout my life and having these rite of passages throughout my life into new identities. That can be something that's really empowering.
Yeah. And I think that's so true. It's like I've definitely, I can definitely resonate with a lot of that. We've talked a lot about that actually in this podcast. That seems like another common thread through the podcast too. It seems like a very important part of society that we're really missing. And just talking there to what you're saying about change, people being resistant to change, and it's like that's kind of concerning, because the fact is that change is exponential.
That's it.
It's exponential. The rate of change is exponential. And we use a model in the work that we do, and it's like, it's got these curves of the rate of change. And then there's the ability to respond.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and complexity. So as complexity goes up and as the rate of change goes up, if you don't meet your ability to respond to change with the same rate,
that's it.
You get something called the collision of the future, where everything just goes.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally what I wrote my last book about, legacy disorder. But I used a slightly different language. But it was, you know, technological advancement is accelerating, but our emotional and spiritual advancement is, you know, digressing. And, you know,
what do we do?
Use your imagination.
Not a good outcome.
Not a good outcome. But, you know, I think new technologies and innovations are hopefully going to allow for the catching up of we definitely won't get there if the solution is for every person on the planet to go and meditate in a cave for 20 years. Like, we need solutions that accelerate. You know, we need to get there a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So just on that, as I'm probably going to run out of time here soon, but
wrap it up.
What is there anything you want to mention about your project or your work or anything upcoming that you want to share?
Look, you guys, if you want to check out the tech, you can go to inTruth.io and you can join our beta list and actually try it for yourself. Or, you know, connect with me on socials, and we've got a pretty cool active community. Rix has been a part of it as one of our
I'm in there.
lecturers. So if you're looking for, you know, spaces to transform and develop yourself, we have a series of different things, from retreats to online courses, and it's a cool community, so check it out.
Yeah, it is a very cool community. I've met a few people.
That's right.
Yeah,
cool. Shout out to those guys.
And what about how speaking of your social media, you know, that you're a social media influencer, what's your handle?
You can find me at oh God.
You get this wrong, but it's at Nic Gibson with an underscore.
Gibson, I know, but if you
always miss that one,
it'll come up. So it is Nic Gibson underscore. Yeah.
Okay, TikToking? No TikTok.
Yeah, you know, I think I'm just trying to preserve my dopamine levels for the time being. I'm enough of an addict.
That's cool. That's cool. No worries. I'm on TikTok. Yep. And you can find Design on Purpose on Instagram and TikTok, and you can
check it out, guys.
You can find me on TikTok at Captain Rix, and you can find me on Instagram at Rixley. And like and subscribe. You know the drill.
Yeah.
And and that's a wrap for episode 28 of Design on Purpose. Great to be back on the horse. Thanks, Nic Gibson.
All right, Rix. Thank you for listening.
Cool.